Hello, everyone, and welcome back after a 1 week hiatus to Takeover United Pod, where we once again take over your weekend with all the depressing things of Manchester United. And it's been a mixed 2 weeks. We had 4 games over the past 2 weeks. We had we had Everton, we had Ipswich, we had Fulham, and we had Real Sociedad. And yeah, it's kind of been a mixed week, right? We drew Everton, then we beat Ipswich barely, and then we lost to Fulham, which was a draw, but then we lost on penalties, and then we again drew to Real Sociedad. So basically, essentially, it's like 3 draws and a win, or 2 draws and a win and a loss, however you see it. And but despite the results, it does look like the players are kind of getting what Amorim are saying, at least starting to. Rowan, what do you think?
Uh, I I wouldn't be so sure about that. The players have been getting it. I don't know what they get, but looking looking at the last 4 games, I think uh, uh, we definitely see some positives like um, Joshua Zirkzee is one who's really caught everyone's eye, and I think he, just not so long ago, he got booed by Old Trafford fans, and uh, everybody thought that okay, maybe this is not the right place for him. He should just like get a transfer to Juventus, and uh, all that drama happened around him. But now he's showing some good positive signs that he can play. He can do a good job for us. He even got a goal, uh, which was not the best of shots, but I think he just did enough to beat the keeper just last week, yeah,
Yeah.
against Sociedad. And I think he's getting into good position. I think the number 10 position, those areas of the pitch, I think he really excels well in. He's not an out like it's showing clearly that he's not an out striker like a proper number 9. He's more like a playmaker
9.5.
who, yeah, 9.5, 9.5. So he's been one positive. Another one is definitely our captain Bruno Fernandes, who's again he's hit top form, and like he's just providing us with some moments with where we are getting the points, and uh, after he's shown good character. He's like taken up good responsibility once he has been moved deep into midfield. Uh, Clearly, that's not his best position, not the ideal way to play Bruno in the team, but it's the hour of the need. We have so many injuries right now.
Yeah.
Our key players are out, and like Ahmad Mainu is out. Even Collier, I think he returned, but like
Yeah.
he
Collier
isn't like
is,
fully fit.
yeah, I think he's still kind of coming back to fitness.
Yeah, right. And like uh, tactically, there have been some changes from Amorim as well, but out and out, I feel uh, these the players on the negatives, the United players are still making the same mistakes as the previous games, like on all three areas of the pitch, like defense, attack, midfield. Uh, Again, basic errors like not passing the ball, not making the right decisions in the moments, uh, not making the right runs, not tracking back correctly, not getting into position. Like we talk about so many things in tactically, right? Like by let's say midfield, like creating numerical advantage in midfield. But then again, it when you watch them week in week out, you really question like telling them about having how to create a numerical advantage in midfield. Like do they really understand when they don't even know where the player is? Like they don't even have player awareness. So
Yeah.
I'm seeing like basic errors like these, which which points to which only tells us like makes us even more certain about like whether these players are good enough or not. And like clearly by the looks of it, we will have to make so many additions now in the summer,
Yeah, yeah.
uh, which is like which has to happen. Like the Ineos has to back Amorim for really if Amorim wants to really see his tactics, his tweaks come to fruition, then I see that Ineos have to back Amorim, and I think we are seeing that.
Yeah. Yeah, I
What
think
about you, Sandeep?
yeah, sorry.
Yeah, you were saying, Pratyush?
No, I just wanted to say that Ineos has to be. I hope Ineos is smarter than the Glazers in how they back the manager. Like we saw with Eric Ten Hag, right? He didn't have the best talent ID. We spent a lot of money on players that don't even play for us anymore or barely play for us. Or for example, you take Anthony or Casemiro or say Rasmus Højlund, Andre Onana. All these players have been flops, right? And we spent what on these four players? What 300 million or close to that somehow, thereabouts. And before that, Jadon Sancho, like another 100 million or 90 million, whatever he cost. So like, I hope Ineos is smarter than that. Like the Dorgu transfer has been promising, so I hope that we at least make good buys and not again just chase behind shiny toys and then let the manager figure out how to integrate them, or um, or let the manager get complete say, because we keep I don't know pining for a time of Sir Alex Ferguson when the manager knew everything and could do everything right, which is not the case. And we should not be just because it worked once doesn't mean it will work again. So like I don't want us, like Eric Ten Hag spent 250 million on three players who have been absolute failures at the club. So and like on that note about Onana and Højlund, they have been really, really bad. Like sure, Onana maybe had a good performance against Sociedad, but the games before, like especially Ipswich, like Onana had a nightmare in that game. And I think even Fulham, he had a pretty bad game, right?
Yeah,
So yeah, I think, and yeah, I think even Hoyland just continues to be bad. Um, like now even Zirkzee has more number of goals in the league than Hoyland, and even overall, Hoyland has 7 goals, Zirkzee has 6, and for somebody who should be an out and out striker, that's really disappointing. So yeah, I think for me, yeah, I mean, yeah, like I did see some positives, like on the left, especially wherever Dorgu plays, it's been a bright spot on that side of the pitch, and especially when Garnacho plays in like the left 10 or wherever that he plays. Um, I think it's looking very good with him and Garnacho and even Bruno when he drifts to the left. Yeah, so yeah, and it's just sad to see that Bruno is a better midfielder at CM than Casemiro. Just how far his legs have fallen that he can barely stitch a pass. But yeah, uh, Somdeep, I know you did see some of the tactical changes that Amarim has been trying. What do you think about them?
Yeah, I think like throughout the podcast, we've all at different times highlighted like the player issues, right, and how they're struggling in different positions. Uh, Partly due to lack of familiarity for some of them. Like, we don't have natural wing backs in the squad until Dorgu recently arrived. So that's one of the reasons. Um, Also, I think in general, player quality at United is not very high right now. It's not at its best. So, but we've gone into all of that. Uh, what's interesting for me is from what I've observed is that over the course of the last three games, primarily from the Ipswich game uh, onwards, Amrim's made some tactical changes, and we'll dive into that a little bit. Uh, it's not a huge tweak from his philosophy, but it's still, I think, the first significant adaptation I've seen him make at United in his short time at the club so far. So yeah, like uh, I have a little diagram maybe that we could look at. Can you guys see the tactical board on the screen?
Yeah.
Yeah, let me
Okay.
share it to the stream. One second.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Just
it's
let me know when
visible on the
that's up.
stream now. Yeah, good.
Okay. So the first, like, okay, first let me draw this shape, and we'll talk a little bit about it. It's not a big difference, but we will see where things stand. Okay. So we know a lot about how Amram's most common base setup, especially in build up, it's a 3-5. It's a 3-4-3 or a 5-2-3, depending on how you see it. I think it's safe to see it's been 5-2-3 just because of our player quality
Yeah.
so far, right? So typically, a lot of our build up, how it's looked under Amrim in like, when we have the ball with Onana, and we are kind of in settled build up and we're starting it out. It's typically looked like we'll have one of the CBs sort of moving up a little bit with the DM. Sorry, with the DMs like either side, and we'll have the wing backs going a little higher, and the same for the 10s to occupy the half spaces. And this is kind of how a lot of our settled build up has looked. Occasionally what will happen is one of the CBs, which typically used to be Licha, will move a little higher here, and the other CB will occupy the space. But this has typically been the shape that Amarim has tried to have the team prioritize build up in. It's similar to a majority of what he used at Sporting as well. The idea being that there's loosely a box in midfield with a lot of the width either coming from the wing backs or from a player like Garnacho or Ahmad if they're playing in the 10, because often Eriksen's position is occupied by Garnacho. Uh, what I noticed first in the Ipswich game, but more so in the Fulham game, was a bit of a change from the scheme. Uh, this is how we started playing out. So we had the CBs going like nice and wide. Now Maguire didn't step into midfield. He didn't invert, but instead he stayed very much like as a central CB kind of figure on the ball. Dalot was somewhere here, uh, firmly in the RCB kind of position, and Mazraoui was tucked in a little bit, not truly wing back, but more like almost like a right back. And and what would happen was Bruno was firmly positioned as a kind of deep lying playmaker when we had the ball, and Ugarte and Eriksson were almost occupying the same line, with Eriksson maybe a little ahead of him. Højlund was clearly tasked with stretching play, so he was sort of making runs from like deep to beyond the line of the defense. Uh, and I'll shed a little bit of light on that later. And Xerxes was very much operating as a 10 behind Højlund. I think we've seen that in the last 3 or 4 games, right?
Yeah.
He's been playing in the number 10 role. What was interesting to me, especially in the first half against Fulham, was that Joshua Xerxes wasn't like, when Ahmad was playing right 10, right, in the old setup, uh, he would tend to occupy this side of the pitch, the very much on the right half. But Xerxes was making runs from inside out on the left, inside out on the right, and even beyond the striker. So he really was operating like a pure 10. And for me, the biggest change that I noticed in our build up is previously we'd build up in a 3-2-5 shape with a double pivot of, say, Bruno and Ugarte. But against Fulham, our build up changed to have 3-1 and then 6 players in front of Bruno. So why I thought this was a good tweak from Amram was Fulham came expecting something like our typical 3-2-5. What they didn't what they didn't predict was Ericsson dropping into the left eight, Ugarte moving up into the right eight, and Xerxes kind of dropping into this false nine role and forming a diamond in midfield for us. And what this did was suddenly from having two players in the middle during build up and sort of two tens who were wide apart, we suddenly had a very well constructed diamond in the middle of the pitch, and we started creating triangles around them. So I noticed one movement very frequently, like because Bruno is just one player, he would kind of create, like he'd kind of position himself a little away from Ericsson, and and a free line of pass would open up to Ericsson dropping deep, because Fulham weren't immediately prepared for that for much of the first half. And a similar angle would open up for Ugarte, because he's taking up like a really advanced position as an eight. And and all these little tweaks, what I felt did for us is it gave us a way to have controlled successful build up against Fulham, something we've tried but not always succeeded against other teams. And to me, this was a really interesting change. And against Sociedad, uh, we did sort of revert to a 5-2-3 again, but the basics of forming, like against Sociedad, I'd say there were many moments where the build-up structure looked something like this. Uh, you can replace Ericsson with Zirkzee, really. It was more like this. Uh, we can go into the exact players later, but it still roughly sort of looked like this in a lot of situations. So it's interesting that he's kind of moved for now away from a double pivot in build up to a single pivot, often creating something like a diamond.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good to always see some tweaks to the system, right? Also, like the thing that you're saying about triangles, I also saw that. Which game was that? Um, I think it was the Ipswich game before Dorgu got a red card, and even in the
Right.
Everton game after Garnacho came on, you could see Dorgu, Garnacho, and even because Bruno has been on the left side, you could see the three of them trying to do something on the left, and then Zirkzee would drift in because Bruno was playing deeper. Zirkzee would support from the front as well sometimes, drift in from the right side. I think when Garnacho was playing, Zirkzee was on the right, in the right 10. But yeah, you could really see that. And I think that's also a good adjustment I felt that he was trying. Obviously, we don't still see the results totally, and I get it that those will take time. But this one, I do want to say the lack of results, is it just because Højlund is so bad up top? Like, I see so many times, like, our players will make runs, try to get into the box, you know, late up for, not late up, why am I talking basketball? Pass it to Højlund. And then he'll be like, oh, where do I hit? Oh, where's the goal? And he'll just back pass it. Or not just
I think
Højlund.
I think layup is the perfect term. Like, because no, I've been harsh on Holland and maybe even taken the Mickey out of him. But
Yeah.
really, if you look at the Fulham game again, we had an XG of 1.6, and we. I feel like we kind of dominated the game by our standards, but the number of moves that Højlund put an end to was quite astonishing.
Yeah, and it's not just Højlund. I think even the other game against Sociedad, and I think even the Fulham game. I think Diogo Dalot. Um, yeah, I know, man. It's getting increasingly harder to defend him at any juncture, especially in attack. Right, on the right side. Like, I mean, there were instances where Diego Dallo is running into the box, um, and yeah, he had like a couple of opposition players closing down on him, and Dallo would have an easy cross or an easy pass to say a Zirkzee running in or Garnacho running in into the box on the other side, and Dalot could just dink it to them, and they would have a better shot at the goal. And I would always see either Dalot trying to take on two men himself and trying to shoot, which would obviously go nowhere. He's not a striker. Or I would see Dalot do a back pass and completely kill the move. I'm like, bro, you started the move and you're killing it.
Uh, I so yeah, I know that there's been a clip on social media that's been doing the rounds, and really, yeah, I mean, even Dalot probably doesn't have an explanation for what happened there. Uh, it was a good move from United. They made that counter, and Dalot was in good space, and Højlund had made a good run into the box. He
Mm.
was onside. I think he was even a little behind Dalot, so he would have been onside no matter
Yeah,
what.
yeah,
Uh, I'm not sure why that pass wasn't made, but maybe it was just situational. I think with Talo, we're seeing like two layers of problems. One is that he isn't a wing back, and that's very evident. Like this is a player who's a decent, maybe top six quality EPL fullback who's pretty decent at inverting, but he struggles at wing back. What happens when he plays right wing back is he often finds himself in these really attacking positions, like you said, and either misses the shots that he can take, or he doesn't make the final ball in those situations. And this is a consistent struggle with him, right?
mm,
Like we saw versus Sociedad against Fulham, he was playing left wing back
yeah,
with Ericsson as the left eight. Uh, Now, in theory, this combination was working really well because Ericsson was dropping into those pockets on the left eight. Uh, so Fulham's defenders were left with this choice, like, okay, do they follow Ericsson? But if they follow Ericsson into midfield, there was space opening up for Dalot on the left wing back area. And he was attacking that space. The problem happened that every time he got on the end of those passes, and United did target him, uh, he would receive the ball and then he would cut back onto his right foot. Uh, and he tried to and then because he'd cut back onto his right foot, like the runs made from the strikers would get wasted, and he'd have lesser options to pass, and by then Fulham would recover shape. So yeah, I think we either need a new right wing back, clearly,
yeah,
or we need like Ahmad to come back and play more games there, because right now the squad doesn't really have a clear cut option there. Like Dorgu's pretty much settled at left wing back, I think, but the right side is very open ended to me.
yeah. Agreed. I think we're really missing Ahmad in the side. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like even Mazraoui, another guy, he looks okay at CB, but when he goes on to wing back again, he looks lost, and I'm not sure why. He wasn't Mazraoui supposed to be a wing back? No, like
I I kind of saw his time at Ajax as being more like a fullback who was just good at, like he was good at occasionally overlapping, but a lot of his strength involved like inverting and playing through the lines of midfield. Not much of a passer, but he would just carry the ball through
yeah,
midfield and then overlap with Anthony on occasion.
mm,
I don't think he's ever had the stamina to play wing back, and we see that at United, right? He struggles with uh,
yeah,
being able to run up and down, and you need that at wing back. Like to some extent, Dalot is able to fulfill that part of it, but Mazraoui isn't to some extent.
yeah.
Uh,
Probably
wh-
just
wh-
that part. Uh,
But yeah, I want to come back to a Highland. What's the problem with him? Like
yeah, like with Hoyland, right? He had a decent first season, right? He
yeah,
had
he did.
quite some goals in Europa, and even Premier League. He was like the no, he didn't score many, but like the goals that he scored, like you could see some kind of kind of confidence in him, like the way he was taking shots and everything, like power shots and everything. So makes me wonder, like, has he lost like total confidence this season, or is he like I can see signs of him not being the nine that we need, like the quality of nine, the number nine that we need at Manchester United. If you really want to challenge, like if you really want to climb top, go towards top four, maybe like challenge. I can't see that kind of quality with it. But like, does he have that capability to be a backup, even a backup at United? Like, would you all consider that? Is that a confidence thing, or is he like not suited to this league, or uh, what's going on with him? What do you all think?
Man, like Højlund really has me stumped. I, Even at the time when United bought him, I felt okay. Like it's an overpay, but we need a striker. So at least we're fulfilling a need of the squad. It was obviously an overpay, and we all felt that at the time.
Yeah,
I think he did well to get a decent number of goals for a debut season, and overall, I think we were mostly okay with his performances. Like there were issues. There was a long goal drought in the Premier League. I think it took him 7 or 8 games, or
Yeah.
maybe a little more, to get his first goal. And then he kind of went on a streak.
But he
I
was
really
scoring in the
thought he
Champions League though, pretty
yeah,
consistently.
and to be honest, that's still not a problem for him. I mean, he's been scoring in Europe this season to some extent as well, right? So things haven't really changed there. I would say. Um, I mean, he scored a brace against Bayern, so it's deeply confusing. I feel like part of it's confidence, like you say, but I think the second part of the issue is if you look at his career, right? He was at FC Copenhagen, if I'm not wrong, first, and at some point he came through the academy, but they released him, right? Sort of pretty young age, he moved clubs, and I think he went to Sturmgrass, but I'm not sure about the club he was there. And then of course he went to Atlanta, where he was in a backup role as a nine, and he
Yeah.
scored a few goals in Serie A.
Okay, just one thing. He didn't move to Stormgrass on a free. They paid 2 million for him.
Yeah, but the thing is that he kind of wasn't first choice at Copenhagen, even in that period, right? He was kind of the backup, and he was pretty young when he had the move. Like he was very young, I
Yeah.
would say. He still is 22.
Yeah.
I feel like he's had something of the Lukaku effect with him. Um, Players who clearly possess a lot of the characteristics you want to see in a striker. He's got pace. I think he's got power in his shooting. He also appears to have some amount of right foot shooting as well, which is a good sign. But the Lukaku effect is what I call players who have a lot of the physical characteristics and who also have a lot of the goal scoring characteristics, but due to some years of misdevelopment, changing clubs, and just like quick progression through the ranks, they miss out on some of the fundamentals of striker play. The parts where your ability isn't going to carry you, but your development, your I want to say your ability to see situations is going to carry you. I don't want to use the word IQ, but like uh, striker IQ, let's call it that. Something that is trained. So I feel like some part of that has maybe not been given to him, and maybe he didn't get the chance to do that, having moved clubs at a young age, and because of that, oh, and of course the second season syndrome. So what's happened is that teams have figured him out a little bit. Uh, at the same time, he's in his second season, and now he can't rely just on his natural characteristics, right? So where's the fallback? It's not coming from the team, because United aren't going to create a big number of chances for him. We're not doing that. So that really leaves him with being very sharp in each moment and making the right choices, making the right decisions. And unfortunately, like, that part's not coming for him. Like, uh, to give an example, I think his spatial awareness can be better. When he receives the ball, uh, his primary objective seems to be, I need to be between the ball and the defender, which makes sense, right? But his entire focus is so much on that he isn't aware of the position of his teammates.
True.
And and one of the ways you see this coming up is misplaced passes. Like, he tries to lay it off correctly, so but he misses his target.
Hmm.
He misses the runs of players going beyond him, because defenders get attracted by Højlund dropping deep, but he misses the runs of players who go beyond him and attack the space that he just created for them, right? So even his
100%.
good
Yeah.
yeah, so even his good qualities aren't being maximized by his own lack of development in this area. And I feel for him too, because being the main striker starting week in week out for Manchester United is very difficult.
Yeah.
He's
Right.
20, he's 22. He's not had that time to develop that part of his skill set. He's not had consistent coaching at Manchester United, right? Either in a bad team environment. And because of that, his flaws are being exposed rapidly in the pace of the Premier League. uh, Even the good things he does end up not, like, one of the good things he does do, for example, is dummy runs in the box. Like, he'll often make runs when a cutback comes in. He'll pin a defender and create space for the attacker to score from, which is wonderful. But the other side of his game, where he should be on the end of that cutback, right? There's an argument that he should be chasing the cutback and be attracted to it, be the person meeting that ball. That part of his game hasn't grown or been
Mm.
encouraged, and I don't see where that will come from the way things are right now. But again, he's 22, and strikers do take time.
This,
Like, so, yeah, yeah.
like this is what Varane was also talking about in his interview, right? Like at United, we every player, like the players just come in and they're expected to do a lot, and clearly, like having someone as like inexperienced as Hoyland, who just we got him for a crazy amount of money, and then we are just putting him in without like him having like a stellar record anywhere else and not having enough experience. I think Varane pointed out in his interview that we do that at United. Like we had like a striker like Cavani, right, who had like loads of experience, who came in and he was able to do a good job for us like during all his time.
Yeah, I think
But
Cavani
then
is a
it also makes you
that's
wonder
a
like
great
why
example.
are in yeah like which makes you wonder like why Ineos or like even Glazers are like spending money on young talent, so much money on young talent, like unproven talent, when clearly they are of the need is someone experienced, someone in their prime who can really carry the games for us. So that is pretty questionable from the board as well.
Yeah, I think one thing we are missing is we don't have like any good senior striker at the club right now. Like
Right.
it's literally just Hoyland. That's it.
Yeah,
Like we used to have
exactly.
Uh,
Cavani, we used to have Martial, we used to have, even if it's like senior or washed players, we used to have somebody with experience who could at
Yeah,
least mentor the juniors. Right now, like up top,
right.
like remember just like say 3 or 4 years ago, we used to have like an embarrassment of riches, in the front line. And it was more like, hey, our midfield is shit, our midfield sucks, they can't create chances. But if you create chances, our
Yeah,
front line will finish it. And right now, it's, I don't want to get into a Rashford debate now, but I mean, even Rashford, who was our most senior forward, has left the club. So we are really lacking experience and we're not replacing these departures, right? Like, sure, if you want
right.
player XYZ to leave, sure, take that judgment, send him off. But you should also replace him. And even if you remember the year we got Hoyland, there was a big, discussion of whether we should get Harry Kane or whether we should get Rasmus Højlund, because both are costing
Yeah,
similar, and Kane would have demanded much more in wages than Rasmus Højlund. And everybody, including the Athletic, were like, "Hey, Højlund is cheaper. Sure, it might be same transfer fee, but he'll be much cheaper wages. So this will help PSR, this will FFP, and he's a good striker. He scores goals in Atlanta." But I think everybody missed the fact that players as young as Højlund also need some mentoring and coaching, not just from an attacking coach, but from an actual footballer who plays up top.
and we had like Osimhen and I think Osimhen and also who's that guy who recently transferred at Juventus on loan? Uh,
Randall Colomuani.
we had Colombia. Like we had a list of targets and we just ended up getting Hoyland.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it wasn't even like we'll get this player, we'll try like we'll keep him for a year or maybe loan him back to some other club to get more experience.
Hmm.
Even that would have been like an acceptable thing, kind of thing, where Hoyland gets more Premier League experience or he gets more, like as Somdeep was saying, like he gets to learn about more spatial awareness and making the right passes and timing those passes as well. So maybe that would have worked out for him well. But I think to put so much pressure on a young lad, start making him like a starting nine at United, where we are, and we are also struggling right now. So we need the goal. So
Yeah.
clearly we need someone to step up, right? So putting that much pressure on some young kid is definitely not the way to go.
Yeah, I mean, if you look back to even years where Sir Alex would trust the youth for scoring goals, right, or trust younger players, like you look at 2006, 2007, when he sold Van Nistelrooy, and he was like, okay, I'm going to count on Wayne Rooney and Cristiano, who had just turned 21, to get the goals.
Yeah.
Now, firstly, they were freak talents, so
Yeah,
uh, they're one in like thousands
right.
anyway, right? But even then, even with those two, he had Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and Adam Smith as backups.
Yeah,
Seasoned goal hunters who he knew what to expect from them, and he didn't consider that enough because we also had Luis Saha, who was actually the primary goal scorer.
right.
He just had fitness issues, but he still played most games.
Yeah.
Sure.
And Sir Alex wasn't even happy then. He added Henrik Larsson on loan on top of all of them. So I think for me, goals are the one part where, as Rohan also rightly said, and you, Pratyush, that y- you can't really bank on potential for goals. Like
Yeah.
it's either like Martial hit 17 goals in his first season, right? In England. Uh, so I think it's easy to tell when players have that sort of skill set for being a goal hunter or not, and you have to purchase that in the market. It I know Harry Kane would have never come to us, so it's like as much as I would have maybe liked him at the club, I don't think that would have ever happened. But we have to get like more experienced goal scorers. I don't think there's a way around it. I, like
Even like our ex striker coach, our forwards coach Benny McCarthy, even he mentioned in the interview, like his interviews, that he was like, we were in for both Harry Kane and Hoyland, and we were going to buy both, but we just decided like straight off the bat that we'll just go for Hoyland and not try for Kane because uh, Hoyland definitely has a young, like he's potential and everything, and he can do both their jobs, I think, which was like pretty silly decision making, I think, on United's part. So definitely we are looking at the results of that now.
I
Yeah.
mean, they may have saved money that year, but if you
Yeah,
zoom out and look at it over a 2-3 year period, they've actually lost a giant amount of money. Think of the UCL
Yeah.
qualifications that are
True.
lost due to this.
No, but also if you look at that season, 23-24, when we got Rasmus Højlund, for what transfer markets is, I'm sure there's an estimate because nobody publishes it, but yeah, 75 million euros. Um, there is a reason we didn't get Harry Kane that season. It's because we spent 65 million on Mason Mount and 50 million on Andre Onana and 10 million on a loan for Amrabat.
I have to say, I think 2003, 2023, 24 summer window could potentially go down as the worst Manchester United transfer window ever. After a season where we bought Anthony and Casemiro,
Yeah.
like it
Yeah.
still somehow
Yeah.
feels worse because for all their faults, Anthony and Casemiro did get us a UCL top four place.
Right.
They did win. I think what was it like? Two trophies? Was it
Yeah.
two?
Yeah. Yeah. They had a quite a good contribution in the cups as well. Like cup wins, they had did it pretty recently. Like after that, it just went down. That
And I feel like we basically replaced David De Gea with a worse version of himself and paid 60 million
Yeah.
for that privilege, like which uh, y- again, like this confuses me too because Onana was like he was in the UCL final the season before. He was playing with Inter Milan, a team head and shoulders above United. So maybe it just is like the fact that as a club and a unit we're not in a good moment right now, and that trickles down to new players arriving in this environment. Someone like David De Gea could still sort of fight back against that because he'd been through the ups and downs, so he knew some of it. But for Onana, it must have been a shock.
Yeah. And
clearly the environment at MUFC is something like not all players can keep up with, uh, especially when we get new players in. It's always like the jury is always out on them. Like obviously, in terms of talent of how they'll fit into the squad. But another major factor that comes in with them is that can they handle the environment at United, because lots of it is there are a lot of there is 100% lot of media involved. There's 100% a lot of uh, mismanagement from the board as well, and which it has been the case for so many years now. So definitely to come into that environment, like maybe like yeah, you could call it toxic or whatever, like, and to really perform. I think it's not the most. It's not a very good environment for young players to develop. Clearly, someone who has been at the big club may be able to understand that better. Like players like Casemiro, Varane, they have been to big clubs. They have been to that, uh, been under that kind of an influence. But yeah, for the young players, it's quite tough. Maybe academy players, maybe still they know the club well, but for someone young from an entirely different league, I think it gets a little bit tougher for them in that regard.
yeah.
Yeah, like Rohan, you touched on a really interesting point there, and like I kind of want to ask Pratyush about this because I know you have strong feelings about this. Uh, there is an immense media circus around United. Like we all consume it as well. I'm sure. Like that's how a lot of information gets to each of us. Uh, I call it a circus because it's not always balanced opinions, and
Oh, it is.
everyone's got
I
running an
think a
angle.
circus is much more well behaved than the media circus
Yeah,
around
yeah,
United.
absolutely,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely, yeah. Uh, One of the troubling things I've noticed in recent weeks that's been happening a lot is different sections of media around United attacking Bruno Fernandes.
Yeah.
Uh, there's been Roy Keane very publicly talking about how Bruno is not good enough to play at United. There's Mark Goldbridge
Our very
who
beloved
lost
Mark
his
Goldbridge.
yes, shout out Mark or Yeah, he's talked about how Bruno is not good enough to play for Manchester United. Now, Pratyush, the thing is, I know he lost his favorite beating stick once. Somebody left Manchester United
Yeah,
recently.
yeah.
But did you really think it would be Bruno of all
No,
people?
man. It's like I find it very troubling that such kind of statements are being made about a player like Bruno Fernandes. Bruno has been at many times the sole bright spot in the club or on the pitch, especially after De Gea left. It used to be that early on it used to be, oh, De Gea is a sole bright spot. Whatever you do, you expect De Gea to always put in a shift and drag the team out from the most dire situations, and he did that for a lot of years. 4 times Player of the Year, and then we got Bruno. Was it during all this time, right? In the winter transfer,
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Bruno was pretty much an instant impact. I think he's one of, or maybe the only transfer in the last decade that came to the club and immediately started performing and delivering value to the club. And I mean, sure, he has had a few off games here and there, but one should also, take into account that whenever he's fit or not suspended, Bruno plays every minute. He never gets subbed off or rarely gets subbed off. He never rests a game, right? Like how often, like every manager says that, oh, we should rest Bruno more. Like we spend 65 million on Mason Mount so that we can rest Bruno more. Only for Mason Mount to always be in the hospital. Um,
And
so
Donny.
and Donny, yes. And yeah, we spent 40 million on Donny Van de Beek for him to never play or barely play a game. Um, or play out of position whenever he played because Bruno would not give the spot. And I think it's for good reason that no manager at United has ever even considered dropping Bruno Fernandes. It's it's because he just he raises the bar so much for Manchester United on the pitch, and it's for good reason he became the captain, right? Which some would have said was long overdue, but it's for good reason he was made the captain. And it is just very disappointing. Like, sure, Mark Goldbridge, I mean, he's a twat. I mean, he just keeps chatting shit. Um, I get it. He's trying to do it for the clicks to, build his podcast to earn money, whatever. But what's the matter with Roy Keane? Like, that is someone I didn't expect to go off on Bruno Fernandes. Because in my book, Bruno and Roy Keane are like temperamentally at least very similar players in a way. Very, very passionate for the badge, always give their all on the pitch, never back down. Roy Keane was obviously more violent. He would break people's legs. Sorry, Haaland. But but you see with Bruno Fernandes also, right? He's very, very passionate. Yeah, he's not breaking people's legs, but you see him on the pitch. Like whenever there is some foul or anything going on, Bruno is the first guy in front of the referee chewing his ears out. And it is just very shocking that for somebody like Roy Keane, who himself got criticized a lot during his time, for being too passionate or for being unruly and all of that. And we do know Bruno gets a lot of the criticism for his antics on the pitch, but it's very shocking for Roy Keane to say Bruno is holding this team back. Like if you remove Bruno from the team, this team is getting relegated. Like we're already so close to relegation. You remove Bruno, the team is definitely
100%.
getting
Yeah,
relegated. 100%.
100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like I've definitely had moments in the past where I've criticized Bruno, but criticism with Bruno is often like, oh, like he should have scored that goal, or oh, like he missed that chance to take us to like
Yeah.
second or third on the table. But the rest of the team has us in relegation. Like,
Yeah.
the level of problems Bruno gives you is very different from what the rest of the team gives you. Uh, he's suffering from the Steven Gerrard or maybe the David De Gea effect, carrying a broken team with poor players
Yeah.
and randomly picked managers without any plan. Not bad managers, but randomly picked ones.
Yeah, yeah.
He's been the one constant through them. He's played attacking midfield. He's now playing as
Central
a
midfield or defensive
yeah. He's now
midfield.
playing defensive midfield. He's literally playing defensive
Yeah,
midfield. Now he's playing as a lone pivot in the last 3 games.
Yeah.
Like in build up at least. Because the DM we bought for 60 million can't build up from the back. But Bruno can. So unfortunately, that weight goes on. It shouldn't have to, but that's how things are. Uh, so yeah, I mean, there are lots of players you can have issues with at United. I think Bruno's probably last on that list. You know,
yeah.
like
I mean, sure. Has Bruno had off games? Sure. I mean, no player is perfect. Has Bruno had, streaks where he barely did anything? Sure. But for Roy Keane, this is especially now, where over the last couple of months, Bruno has been one of the few bright spots in the team. And he's not even playing in his preferred position. He's playing DM, like you said. And he's still running up and down the pitch. He's scoring goals, he's scoring free kicks, whipping in corners. Like, I don't get what Roy Keane's problem with him is. Like, why suddenly target Bruno Fernandes?
not everyone might agree with me on this, but I think this has been one of Bruno's most impressive seasons for United
Yeah.
because he's playing in an unfamiliar position in an unfamiliar system with two different managers, well, three, and he's still somehow contributing goals and assists.
Yeah.
He still had one of the best chances against Sociedad when he
Right.
ran in
True.
and they blocked the ball on the
True.
goal
True.
line. Like I don't know how he's doing it at this point. He had a great game against Liverpool where I felt he ran the show from midfield again in unfamiliar areas.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe Sir Alex was even more of a genius than we thought in tying those players together to play as well as they did.
Yeah. And yeah, I don't know, man. Like, Bruno, for example, this season, he has what? How many is this? 11 goals. Has anyone even scored 11 goals this season for us? He scored 15 and 11 goals, and not just 11 goals. If you take goals plus assists, he has 11 goals and what is this, 12 assists. Yeah. Who on the team has that level of output at
In
this
their
side?
career. Like,
Yeah. Oh, sorry, not 12, 13 assists. I forget to count the community shield. Yeah, so 24 goal involvements this season for Bruno Fernandes across all competitions. And it was similarly high last season. Last season he scored 15 goals and he had 13 assists. And the season before that, I mean, every season it just Bruno is like one of the bright spots on this team. So, and not just Roy Keane, like especially after Mark, you're a twat, but especially after Mark Goldbridge started his, I see this more and more online on social media, like fans going off on Bruno, and I'm like, do you even realize what that man is doing for this team? Like, he's playing auto position and still scoring goals and assisting goals for the side.
man, if you zoom out, the Goldbridge did exactly this. What he's doing to Bruno, he did exactly this to Rashford as well.
Yeah,
Over the past two. See, again, Rashford had issues as well, but for big chunks of the last 4 years, Bruno or Rashford have been one of the few players who keep
True.
getting us out of games. Maybe
yeah,
not
Right.
always playing well, but grabbing a game and getting us out of it,
yeah,
right? Uh, it, the only difference between Rashford and Bruno, sorry, is that Bruno is the captain and he's harder to criticize, and also he hasn't directly attacked the United stand, so he's it's a lot crazier to go at him fully. I think people will see through it.
yeah. I mean, see, for Rashford, like, sure, you could still criticize him. He had disciplinary issues, or even on the pitch, he would not run a lot of times. He would just be static, even more than Paul Pogba, and he was called Jogba. Uh, but what fault do you find with Bruno? That guy has zero disciplinary issues. he's running all the time on the pitch. He's like a freaking Duracell bunny, running up and down the pitch. Like even when he played number 10, you could see him run back to centre back and recover a ball that was misplaced by our brilliant players at the back. So
Yeah, arguably he runs too much. If anything, I,
exactly,
I would say like like
like
take a
dude, calm
rest.
down. Yeah, we have centre backs for a reason. But yeah, so I don't understand. Like, on what angle will you target Bruno? Like with Rashford or Pogba, any of those players, you either had disciplinary issues or not putting in enough effort on the pitch, which we all could see, right? So they always had a cover to criticize. But what do you have with Bruno?
I mean, I don't. Okay, I even have reservations with that because I feel people like Goldbridge built that narrative that, for instance, Pogba didn't run a lot. But if you look at his actual numbers, right, Pogba typically averaged the second or third highest kilometers per game for United across entire seasons.
Yeah,
So I feel like what happens with players like Martial, Pogba, Rashford, and Scholes is that, funnily enough, Scholes is that the aesthetic nature of how they operate overrides the perception of what they're really doing. Like, like Pogba has like he does appear like he's jogging. I see where the nickname comes from. He definitely looks like he's jogging. But if you zoom out, this is a 6 feet 2 inch guy with unnaturally long strides. Uh, who can cover ground much more easily than a lot of his competitors.
yeah,
The occasional laziness doesn't change the fact that he's still covering a lot of ground overall, I feel. But I don't know, like, okay, like these guys aren't at the club, but you can't even say that for Bruno. Like you won't even be able to find those situations for him, right?
yeah,
Even
exactly.
if you were to go hunt.
Yeah, that's why I don't get the Bruno criticism, right? Like the antics, sure, I get that, but is that something to kind of rake a player over? Your own player, that too. Like for antics, yes, opposition fans or players will criticize Bruno for his over the top antics when there's a foul or whatever. But how are your own fans criticizing him, right? Like that's like a standard thing in football, he's like, you know, he might be an idiot, but he's our idiot, when players do
I mean, by
antics.
by that logic, then as United fans, we should have been furious at Roy Keane for getting multiple red cards,
Yeah,
right, with
exactly.
dangerous
Yeah.
challenges, like
Dude
which doesn't make
he
like
dropkicked Haaland Senior and kind of ruined
yeah,
his son's future with the club.
yeah. kind of this kind of his what was that horse moment for Sir Alex? This is kind of his
Yeah,
Gibraltar,
yeah,
Rock of
Rock
Gibraltar
of
moment.
Gibraltar. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Like Erling Haaland could have been playing here. The only reason he's not is Roy Keane. And then for
It's
Roy
it's
Keane to say this about Bruno is rich coming from him. Anyways, yeah. I mean, we'll see how this plays out. Hopefully, um, yeah. I really don't want to see a Bruno Fernandes transfer this summer. Like he's nowhere close to done. Like he's still like he has showed no signs of slowing down. So I don't want this thing to just build up to, oh, Bruno Fernandes wants to leave United, because that would be really sad. A, and B, our club is finished at that point. We don't have a replacement at all. So yeah, I don't know what the other pundits are doing. I don't know, but somebody should put a stop to this. Like Bruno is not the guy you should be criticizing about the club's performance. But yeah, with that, before we wrap up, couple of more things. One thing which we should quickly touch upon is um the recent rumors around Kobbie Mainu, who a lot of us were kind of mortgaging United's entire future on that one player, for center midfield, DMCM, whatever you call it. And now we are seeing reports. I mean, sure, it's only from the Guardian, not a very reliable source as of yet. It's I don't think Laurie or Fab, any of those people have talked. I can quickly check. But yeah, just the fact that anybody is talking about this, that Kobbie Manu doesn't want to extend with the club and wants to go abroad in the summer. It's a bit worrying. Assuming it is true, like what's going on? Like he wants 180K, and obviously, I mean, I get it that the club doesn't want to give him that because then you'll have Garnacho and Dorgu and all these players demanding money, and even Ahmad, um, right? So what's going on here? Do you guys have any opinions on that?
I think I think he shouldn't, like, if he's demanding 180K, right? Let's say that's true. Okay?
Yeah.
In the case that that's true, I don't think Ineos would entertain that. Given given they are just like saving money on all sorts of things now, and like staplers and Christmas parties and whatnot.
Yeah, yeah.
It definitely feels like too much of a give. And as we spoke about this in the previous episodes as well, like that there definitely needs to be a culture reset at United, and this is one part of it too. Like, not spending too much, like paying the players the right amount, not overpaying, not even if that's what the market is right now. Like maybe Barcelona is doing it, they're giving the wages are very high there, like even PSG or something. But definitely at United that needed to be controlled, and
Hmm.
I don't think Ineos will be very. They will look to sell. Like if this news is true, they'll probably look to move Mainu on, because they don't want, they would not ideally not want to entertain this amount. Let
Yeah.
but I also have the feeling that this isn't true, because these kind of articles and news always come out when there is like a contract negotiation going on, and it makes perfect sense for the media, right? Like from the media side,
Hmm.
if this negotiation is going on, uh, clearly, and United are not in a great position right now. So, maybe if like I'm in the media and I can go like, okay, maybe the agent would ask for some more money because United not are not in a great shape, and Mainu clearly has a good standing with the United squad. Like he's one of the bright spots in the United squad, right? So why not ask for more money?
Yeah.
So definitely there's a story to be made out of that, right? Like if I'm doing the media thing, I'm writing the article to get more views or anything like that. Definitely I'm putting something out like that. So we are unclear right now that whether that's the truth or not, but I wouldn't believe it at the moment. Like we definitely need to wait for more credible sources before we
Hmm.
can like judge the situation. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, agreed.
Um, I want to add a bit to that. I have my own thoughts on it. Uh, I do agree that it's all smoke at this point. You know, like it's definitely smoke. And then, like Ron said, it's great for the media.
Hmm.
Uh, there are three or maybe two reasons I can see why this is happening. One's what Rohan said, that it's agent talk. They want to up his salary. He's on 20K a week, and of course, he wants the best possible deal he can get. I don't think if it's agent talk, the deal's going to end up at 180. I think they're probably going to end up around the 100K mark. Would be my guess. He
Sure.
anyway has 2 years left on his deal till 27.
Yeah.
So this clearly looks like a salary bump.
Hmm.
Um, but there's a second possible reason I could see why this is happening. Um, if you look at Ineos's tenure and the FFP issues, right, the one consistent bit of news that's been coming out, even from official channels like Lorry, who is connected to the club,
Hmm.
it's been that they might need to sell they might need to sell pure profit homegrown players, right, for pure profit. And if you look at the assets they've either put on or tried to put on the market so far, it's been Rashford, Garnacho.
Yeah.
It's not so crazy that the third one in line is Kobbie. right? Like it's pretty well reported that Napoli and Garnacho were linked, for example. I'm just saying, like this is something we know.
Yeah.
So they're clearly open to the idea of making these sales for PSR, and financially, from their viewpoint, it makes sense. This is the best chance of profit in the squad. Um, yeah, exactly. Right. This report from Laurie and David Ornstein, who are pretty much like top tier sources. There are none better for United. So my thought is also that it's either coming from his agent trying to bump his salary, or it's Ineos testing the waters on and creating grounds uh, for fans to be comfortable with his sale. This is probably one of the hardest players on paper for Manchester United fans to be okay with selling, because
Yeah, true.
he's young. He's actually talented, and he's played a lot of good games for us, and he's a product of the youth academy, one of the best in recent years. So he would be much harder to convince fans to let go of than Rashford or Garnacho, right? Uh, by far. So that's the only other reason I could maybe see this is happening, that they're testing the waters and creating an environment where his sale is viewed as not the worst outcome, maybe due to a contract dispute or something else. Uh, it sounds crazy, but if you zoom out, Ineos got rid of Rashford in January. Okay, they got a loan fee and got some of his wages off the table, but they didn't actually bring in a replacement striker, right? So the whole outcome of the Rashford saga was that they got a loan fee. They reduced the most expensive wages in the squad by far, and they didn't even spend money on bringing in even someone on loan on replacement, right? So financially speaking, like there's definitely motivation. I don't think they're leaking that, oh, he wants a ton of money and he's greedy, but I think they're definitely leaking that there's a gap in what they're offering and what he's asking for, because they know that that can help their perception down the line.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those are the only two reasons that I can think of.
Hmm. But I think, and also at some point, the club has to decide that if you keep getting rid of all your good players, and you have this, project 2028 of winning the Premier League at our 150-year mark, who's going to win you the league? Nusser Mazraoui?
We'll pretty soon have Sir Jim and Sir David lining up as strikers in a 4-4-2 up top at this
Or,
rate.
or, or do they mean 2028? We actually win the championship, because that used to be the first division. So, in line with the club's traditions, we have won the first division, which is now called the championship.
Yeah, it worries me because Varane described how when they arrived, so David Brailsford set up like this whole uh, like story of excellence and winning and everything. And I get it, but maybe selling that pitch to Rafael Varane
Yeah,
is pointless, because this like there are like maybe 10 people in football who've won more than him, right? Like so I don't know what they were thinking with that one, but yeah.
yeah.
But
And
I hope he
also,
stays. I think
that was also another, I would say, very questionable transfer, considering the amount we paid Madrid for him. And Varane always has had
we
injury history. It's not like he suddenly started getting injured after coming to United. He has always been a fragile player. And we spent how much for him? 70 million or something?
no, it was 40 45 odd.
It says 70 million euros. Oh, sorry, 40 million euros. Sorry.
Yeah, 40
Yeah.
million. Yeah, man. Like in looking at the list of terrible deals we've made, like yeah, we probably shouldn't have made that deal, but it wasn't the worst, but at all.
Yeah.
We should not have made it. It's just we've made much worse deals.
No, no, I agree. We've made much worse. But yeah, just that, like, he's always had an injury history, even previously. So yeah. Anyways,
When,
yeah.
whenever we think United can't make a worse decision, they usually do.
Oh yeah, we outdo
Like,
ourselves.
yes,
That's always been
yes.
there. Anyway, that brings us to the end of the pod. Before we leave, a quick predictions from both of you. We have so in the next week we have two games. We have Arsenal tomorrow, and we have midweek we have Real Sociedad, uh, and both games are at home. Both are at Old Trafford. And there's only two games which are there before we come back on the pod next week. I think Leicester is after that. So yeah, predictions. Let's go first with Arsenal. What's, I'll start with you, Sandeep. What's your prediction for Arsenal?
Uh, I think we'll I think we'll start by playing well and look like we're growing into the game and controlling it. But we won't really create anything of note or or just not create anything of note. And eventually Arsenal will win 3-1 or more. I think 3-1, yeah, because yeah, that's my prediction.
Ron?
I think I think first the Fulham game, and then later on we played uh, Sociedad midweek and everything. And I think I think the players are a bit tired. Uh, they must be feeling it, like physically. They must be feeling. I think that's why I think we will start very slow against Arsenal and might as well like concede early. I can see that. Maybe I would go with a 2-0 loss to United. Uh, it can be more, but I think 2-0 would be like the minimum. I think. I think we'll concede uh,
Hmm.
quite easily. And like the rest, like if we go to Sociedad second leg, right? I think we have a chance there. Maybe it will be a very narrow game, but I can see us winning like by a goal or something.
Okay.
Like a very odd goal, like out of nowhere. I can see that, but
A
yeah,
Mazraoui goal.
lost.
A Mazraoui goal from the halfway line.
Yeah, you an unexpected source or something of that source, or maybe like Bruno will just like end up getting one. Uh,
Penalty.
What? Yeah. Yeah, penalty. Yeah, you could say that.
Uh,
I I have a feeling we'll lose the Sociedad game as well, but a narrow loss, and we'll miss a host of our own chances to equalize. And it'll be a loss to something like a Oyarzabal header from a set piece. Just I don't know, like I saw some movement from him on corners where we weren't tracking him, and he's like weirdly, he's not good in the air, but he somehow like connects from time to time, and we're bad on
Yeah.
set pieces. So I feel like we're due one.
okay. Yeah. So Sociedad. I think the last game Sociedad didn't look very good. So I would say maybe we can sneak in a 1-0 victory. I mean, I'm with Ron on that. Very unlikely source. Maybe we see Lenny Yoro get his debut
Yeah.
goal
Who's remaining to score a goal?
from
Euro,
like
right?
a
Yeah, Euro.
stupid
Euro
header.
will.
Ron, we can't hear you, but
Acha.
um, but yeah, I think apart from that, let's see Arsenal. Um, yeah, I think Arsenal. I'm going to go with a hot take. Not winning. No, not my take's not going to be that hot. But I think we'll draw 1-1. I think the team will be fired up, like we saw against Liverpool. And I think Amorim at least has shown that against the big sides, he really doesn't want to lose or be embarrassed. So I think we'll see a much more defensive performance against Arsenal. I honestly won't be surprised if we start Dalot and Mazraoui as wing backs and rest Dorgo for this. Because if you just want to go all defense, that will be a clue. If we start with Dalot and Mazraoui as wing backs. So yeah, I think it will be something like a 1-1 draw, I think, will frustrate Arsenal, and Arsenal will probably score the first goal, freak them out, will make some mistake, concede an equalizer, and I think that will be it. But yeah, we'll see. Anyways, I think that's all for the pod this week. We will catch all of you next weekend at the same time, and hopefully, yeah, I think the only thing we can say is hopefully we are less depressed next weekend. So on that positive note, see you everyone. Catch you in a week and enjoy the Arsenal and Sociedad games at home.